The morning in a medieval town rises slowly, not with the fanfare of bells from cathedrals or the cheerful cries of merchants, but with the faint, often unnoticed sounds of streets still damp from dew. You are among the early risers, not out of devotion, nor from a need to catch the earliest market, but because your survival depends on every minute you can claim before the town fully wakes. You live in a world both visible and invisible. The town depends on you and your work, yet it frequently looks the other way when you appear in public. Your day, if it can be called that, begins not with leisure, but with calculation. You are a harlot, one of the women whose labor is neither celebrated nor entirely reviled. It exists in the grey spaces of social necessity. Your dwelling, if you can call it that, is a small room tucked behind the walls of the city. Often, it is shared with several others, not out of choice, but because rent, or what passes for rent in the brothels, must be divided to keep the owner, usually a brothel madam or a landlord with a taste for control, satisfied. In some cases, these rooms are no more than a corner of a larger house, partitioned with boards or curtains, the thin walls unable to mask the morning coughs or whispered arguments of your neighbors. In winter, the cold seeps through every crevice, chilling your bones in ways that neither firewood nor heavy clothing fully mitigates. The smell of soot and damp timber clings persistently to everything. It is a scent that marks your life as much as the dirt under your fingernails or the patched sleeves of your gown. Your morning routine is largely dictated by the town's rhythms. You rise with the first creaking of carts on cobblestone streets and the distant braying of animals being led to market. Bathing is sporadic, water is often scarce or too cold, or simply claimed by those in the house with higher social standing. But you scrub your hands and face as best you can in a basin of lukewarm water, the bar of soap being a precious commodity, shared among several women. The effort is as much about hygiene as it is about presentation. The appearance of cleanliness can determine whether a client chooses you or passes on to the next room. Once you are dressed, your day's work begins quietly. If you are attached to a brothel, you may wait in a dimly lit room where a small fire burns just enough to keep the chill at bay. Your employer, the madam, watches you carefully, noting the arrangement of your hair, the neatness of your clothing, and the subtle gestures of attention you give to the few clients who arrive early. Some of these visitors are quiet men seeking companionship or solace. Others are more brutish, demanding, or cruel. Understanding each client's temperament can make the difference between a peaceful encounter and a dangerous one. Survival, after all, is the quiet skill upon which your life depends. You learn to read not only faces but silences, to notice the slight changes in posture, the way a hand might twitch, or how a gaze lingers on certain parts of your clothing. Years of experience sharpen your instincts. Those instincts are honed by repeated mistakes, the ones that leave bruises, debts, or, at worst, whispered rumors that can stain your reputation. In medieval towns, reputation is as much a currency as coin, and a bad reputation can close doors and make your nights longer, colder, and more perilous. The streets outside your window are awakening. Merchants lay out their wares, sacks of grain, piles of apples, slabs of salted meat, and the occasional colourful cloth. The aroma of fresh bread mingles with the stench of the nearby tanneries. Horses clatter over uneven stones, pulling carts filled with goods, their drivers shouting orders or exchanging gossip with passers-by. You watch these daily routines with a mixture of detachment and necessity. Knowledge of these rhythms matters. Clients arrive from these streets, and townsfolk sometimes bring their curiosities, judgments, or, occasionally, trouble into your door. Mealtimes are irregular and pragmatic. Breakfast may be a slice of bread, perhaps softened in warm ale, or a bowl of gruel if you are fortunate. Many women share food, and meals are often supplemented with the scraps or leftovers from wealthier households nearby. Hunger is a constant companion, but it is managed in the quiet, unspoken ways of necessity. Drinking water is often risky, as wells can be contaminated, leading to illness. Ale is considered safer because the brewing process kills many pathogens, though drinking excessively carries its own dangers. Beyond basic sustenance, your day is punctuated by preparation. Clothing must be mended. Sometimes a needle and thread are all that stands between decency and embarrassment. Hair is braided or pinned back to show both cleanliness and ornamentation. For even in work that is often scorned, appearances matter. Personal adornments, small beads, simple brooches, or bits of colored ribbon signal both skill and investment in oneself, a subtle declaration of dignity amidst marginalization. These objects are small shields, protective charms against the harshness of clients and the world outside. As the morning wanes, you begin to see the first clients. They are cautious at first, observing the room, calculating, often attempting to negotiate or assert dominance in ways subtle or overt. You respond with equal subtlety, using learned gestures, modulating your voice, and presenting what the client expects while guarding your body and your mind. Each encounter is a negotiation, a silent agreement mediated by experience and occasionally enforced by force or cunning. Here, knowledge is literally life-saving. You know when to speak, when to smile, when to comply, and when to withdraw. Yet, despite the skills, precautions, and routines, danger always lurks. Not all threats are visible. Disease spreads quietly, cutting down those who fail to recognize the signs in themselves or their clients. Legal raids, though infrequent, are terrifying reminders that your labor exists under constant scrutiny and suspicion. And the social gaze, relentless and judgmental, casts shadows longer than any chimney smoke. You exist in a delicate balance between survival and exposure, wealth and destitution, safety and harm. As the sun climbs higher, you catch glimpses of children running through the streets, merchants shouting over their stalls, and beggars weaving among carts, each performing their survival in their own small ways. You wonder about them sometimes, about the arbitrary circumstances that place you in this room, while others run freely, untethered by the obligations and dangers that chain you. There is no bitterness in the observation, merely recognition. Life in the medieval town is a complex web of dependencies, and your work, while shunned in polite conversation, is essential to the ecosystem of human desire, labor, and survival. The clock, or, more accurately, the ringing of distant church bells, signals the shifting pace of the day. Morning work transitions to the busier, more chaotic midday hours. You prepare for the influx, straightening clothes, smoothing hair, checking the alignment of every ribbon or clasp. The first wave of clients has been dealt with, each encounter leaving invisible marks on your body and memory. A brief respite allows for reflection, for a small sip of ale or the exchange of gossip with fellow women who share your small, enclosed world. In these moments, camaraderie is essential. Survival is not a solitary endeavor. It is a collective enterprise, with shared knowledge, warnings, and advice quietly passed from one to another. And yet, for all the preparation, all the vigilance, and all the skill, the day ahead stretches into uncertainty. How will the afternoon unfold? Which clients will bring danger? Which will bring profit? And which will leave nothing at all? The rhythm of the brothel, the careful navigation of streets and interactions, and the constant management of one's own body and mind, these compose the life of a harlot in medieval times. It is a life governed not by grand events or heroic deeds, but by the minutiae of daily survival, by small victories and minor calamities that accumulate into a pattern of endurance. Even in the mundane, the repetition, there is a story, a history that unfolds slowly, almost imperceptibly, in the quiet corners of towns and the shadows of city streets. Your day, the one that begins with careful attention to hygiene and appearance, with meals measured in scraps, and with clients evaluated with practiced detachment, continues to unfold. You move through it with a precise choreography that has been honed over months or years. And yet, as the morning merges into afternoon, there remains an element that cannot be predicted, cannot be controlled, and cannot be mastered. It is the uncertainty of human behavior, of health, of judgment, and, ultimately, of survival itself. As the first bell tolls for midday, you pause for a moment, listening to the rhythm of the town. You think about the unseen, the overlooked, and the underestimated. You wonder whether the pattern of your day, so precise, so mundane, will continue as expected, or whether an unforeseen event will disrupt it entirely. In that quiet moment of reflection, one thought lingers, persistent and unresolved. Despite the routines, the preparation, and the skill, how many women like you truly survive, not just the day, but the entire span of their lives in such a world? The afternoon stretches out like a lazy shadow, gradually lengthening over the cobblestones and rooftops of the town. Inside the brothel, the rhythm of life continues, punctuated by creaking floorboards, the low murmurs of conversation, and the occasional sharp exclamation when a client proves unruly. By now, you are fully awake to the complexities of your profession, the unspoken rules, the careful balance between submission and negotiation, the subtle interplay of power and vulnerability. Each day brings a new set of challenges, even when the physical surroundings remain the same. The same narrow rooms, the same dimly lit hallways, the same scent of smoke and sweat lingering in the corners. What changes are the people who enter these spaces and the situations they bring with them. Your afternoon begins with a deeper awareness of the social hierarchies that govern both the brothel and the town beyond. The madam, an older woman hardened by years in the trade, sits in a corner, quietly observing, issuing instructions in low tones that you almost do not hear. She understands the nuances of the market better than anyone. Which clients are reliable, which are dangerous, which are willing to pay more for certain appearances or services. She knows how to protect her charges while ensuring her own profit. You learn by watching, by listening, and by internalizing the lessons of her experience. There is a subtle mentorship here, even if it is tinged with a pragmatic calculation. Survival in this trade requires guidance, and the madam provides it, whether you want it or not. Clients in the afternoon vary from timid to aggressive, from those seeking brief companionship to those looking for extended engagement. You have developed a system, evaluating intentions, measuring reactions, responding with the appropriate gestures and speech. It is a form of theatre, a performance carefully calibrated to meet expectations while safeguarding yourself. You may smile, adjust a sleeve, or offer a polite word, all of which signal attentiveness without fully giving yourself away. Every movement is deliberate. A misstep, even a minor one, can lead to humiliation, loss of coin, or, in worse cases, physical harm. These risks are constant, unrelenting, and impossible to ignore. One of the most pressing dangers is disease. In medieval towns, the spread of infections, often venereal, is rapid and merciless. Knowledge about prevention is limited. Remedies are inconsistent, and the consequences can be fatal or permanently debilitating. Women in the trade quickly learn to recognize symptoms, to avoid particularly risky clients, and to rely on folk remedies or early medicinal practices, however unreliable they may be. Some brothels maintain rudimentary systems for hygiene, though these are often more about preserving appearances than true health. You become adept at managing your own health with vigilance, inspecting yourself for signs of illness, and observing clients for any indication of contagion. Despite your efforts, the threat is omnipresent, lurking quietly beneath the surface of every transaction. Social dynamics among the women themselves are complex. Rivalry, jealousy, and competition exist alongside alliances, mutual protection, and shared knowledge. A newcomer may be treated with suspicion or welcomed with cautious instruction. Women exchange tips on clients, advice on negotiation, and warnings about potential danger. These interactions form an informal support network that helps maintain some semblance of security in an otherwise precarious world. Trust is both necessary and limited. One must constantly assess who can be confided in and who may exploit even a momentary lapse in attention. Lunch, when it comes, is modest. Often, it is little more than bread or porridge, occasionally supplemented by leftovers, scavenged from wealthier patrons or nearby markets. The act of eating is rarely leisurely. It is done quickly, often while observing the room, listening for the approach of a client, or monitoring the movements of the madam. Food is sustenance, but also a minor luxury, one that provides temporary comfort amid a day dominated by the demands of survival. Every morsel consumed is a reminder of the constant calculation required to live in this environment. Every coin, every gesture, every decision carries weight. The town outside continues its relentless pace. Merchants call out prices, children weave through the legs of townsfolk, and the distant sound of a bell signals the beginning of another hour. From your vantage point in the brothel, you watch, listen, and note patterns. These observations are not idle. They form part of your strategy for remaining safe, for understanding potential clients, and for predicting when opportunities or threats may arise. Knowledge of the town's rhythms, market days, religious festivals, local feuds is as essential as any skill in negotiation or self-protection. It is a form of situational awareness that keeps you alive. By mid-afternoon, some clients become more daring, testing boundaries, attempting to assert dominance, or pressing for more than agreed. You have learned to assert yourself subtly, using verbal cues, body language, and strategic withdrawal. In this way, you maintain a measure of control, even in circumstances that could easily overwhelm a less experienced person. Physical defense is also an option, though one that carries risk. Injuries, legal consequences, and social stigma can follow quickly. The strategies you employ are a combination of psychological acumen, experience, and intuition skills, honed over months or years, often through trial and error, sometimes at great personal cost. Payment is another arena requiring vigilance. Coins are counted discreetly, agreements confirmed, and sometimes renegotiated mid-session. The value of services is never fixed. It depends on client temperament, time of day, social standing, and perceived desirability. A shrewd assessment can maximize profit, while a miscalculation may leave you undercompensated or indebted to the madam or other intermediaries. Even money carries its own hazards. The risk of counterfeit coin, theft, or the ire of clients displeased by demands for exact payment. Every transaction is a microcosm of negotiation, strategy, and survival. As afternoon wanes, exhaustion begins to set in. The physical demands of labor, the constant attention to appearance and behavior, and the mental stress of navigating potential danger combine into a heavy fatigue. You may steal moments to rest, though these are brief and fraught with the awareness that opportunity can arise at any time. The brothel itself is never silent. Sounds of movement, conversation, and occasional argument provide a constant backdrop. Rest is fragmented, a series of small interludes rather than a single, restful pause. Still, these moments, however brief, offer an opportunity to gather strength, reflect on interactions, and prepare for the challenges yet to come. Late afternoon brings another wave of clients, often those who arrive after the main market has closed, or who prefer the relative quiet of less busy hours. These encounters can differ significantly from the morning and midday clients. Some are wealthier, seeking discretion. Others are desperate, impulsive, or unpredictable. Your ability to adapt, to read the subtleties of behavior, and to manage interactions with minimal conflict becomes essential. The skills you have developed over time, the careful modulation of voice, the strategic positioning of the body, the nuanced use of clothing and adornments allow you to navigate these encounters with as much safety and profit as possible. Throughout the day, a subtle awareness of the surrounding town persists. Rumors, news, and social shifts filter into the brothel, affecting who comes and who goes. Town politics, disputes between merchants, and religious observances all have indirect impacts on your work. You learn to listen for cues, to anticipate shifts, and to act accordingly. This situational intelligence and accumulation of observation, experience, and intuition becomes one of your most valuable tools. It is a kind of map, not drawn on paper, but etched into memory, informing decisions and guiding behavior. As evening approaches, the brothel's atmosphere changes. Candles and lanterns are lit, casting flickering shadows on walls and ceilings. The energy shifts. The room becomes more intimate, quieter, yet charged with anticipation. Clients seeking companionship in the dark hours arrive, bringing with them the potential for both profit and danger. You prepare, adjusting attire, straightening hair, and readying the careful performance required to manage interactions with skill. Fatigue is ever present, but discipline and instinct guide your actions, allowing you to meet the demands of this crucial period with competence and caution. By the time night fully descends, you are thoroughly enmeshed in the rhythm of your work. Each client, each interaction, each negotiation has required attention, skill, and vigilance. The day's structure, morning preparation, midday negotiations, afternoon survival, and evening adaptation has unfolded in a carefully choreographed sequence. Yet, despite all your skill and preparation, the day does not conclude neatly. Threats remain. Clients may overstep, illness may arise, or town authorities may intervene unexpectedly. The uncertainty is persistent, unyielding, and unavoidable. And here, as night settles over the town, a lingering thought presses upon you. Even with all the knowledge, preparation, and vigilance, how much control do you truly have over your fate? Every action matters, yet countless variables, chance, human behavior, illness, social judgment, remain beyond your influence. The survival of a medieval harlot is a constant negotiation with forces both visible and invisible, where skill meets unpredictability, and where the mundane intricacies of daily life are themselves acts of endurance. In this complex balance, one question remains, unresolved and heavy. In a world so tightly controlled by circumstance and society, is survival alone enough, or is something more required, perhaps luck, favor, or a rare, elusive mercy from fate itself? Night deepens over the town. Streets that once teemed with merchants, children, and laborers now lie quiet under the dim glow of lanterns, interrupted only by the occasional clatter of a cart or the distant barking of dogs. Within the brothel, the pace of life has shifted again. Candles flicker along the walls, casting long, restless shadows. The air, warmed by fires and the presence of many bodies, smells of sweat, wax, and the faintest trace of perfumes, sometimes homemade, sometimes pilfered from wealthier households. This is the hour when danger and opportunity intertwine most tightly, when the outcomes of the day crystallize in the smallest of moments. By now, your body carries the accumulated fatigue of the day, sore feet from standing, a back stiff from leaning or crouching, arms that ache from adjusting garments and attending to clients. Your mind, equally burdened, cycles constantly between calculation and reflex. Each client is a delicate negotiation, each transaction a risk. Yet skill and experience allow a flow, a rhythm that makes the chaotic hours manageable. The body has learned the motions so thoroughly that even exhaustion cannot fully disrupt them. You move, speak, and respond with practiced care, aware that the smallest misstep can have consequences both immediate and long-lasting. Nighttime clients are often different from those of the day. Many arrive seeking discretion, privacy, and relief from social pressures. Some are more affluent than those who wander in earlier hours, bringing with them the potential for greater financial gain. Others are desperate or reckless, and their volatility adds an undercurrent of tension to each encounter. You assess intentions carefully, gauging posture, tone, and expression to decide how to respond. Sometimes you yield with grace, sometimes you assert boundaries subtly, and sometimes you retreat strategically. Every movement, every word, is calculated, a survival strategy refined over countless days. The risks inherent in this work grow as darkness settles. Violence, theft, or betrayal lurk around corners. Outside the brothel, city guards or night watchmen may patrol, bringing with them the possibility of arrests, fines, or other legal complications. Inside, disagreements or aggressive clients can escalate quickly. Women in the trade rely heavily on intuition, learned tactics, and alliances with one another to navigate these dangers. Mutual vigilance is essential. The presence of a watchful colleague can prevent harm, just as neglect or misjudgment can invite it. In these hours, the community within the brothel becomes as critical as the broader societal structures that marginalize its members. Payment, the tangible measure of the day's success, is now a critical focus. Coins clink in hands, discreetly counted, carefully assessed for authenticity. You have learned to detect the weight and sound of currency, to sense hesitation or deception in a client's approach. Missteps in this regard can lead to confrontation or loss. The exchange of money is not merely transactional. It is a negotiation imbued with tension, trust, and strategy. Each interaction leaves a mark, shaping not only the day's earnings, but also the social positioning and relative safety of all involved. As the night deepens, you take brief interludes to observe and reflect. The walls that enclose you hold countless stories, some whispered, some shouted, many unspoken. You have witnessed friendship, rivalry, compassion, and cruelty in equal measure. The madam's eyes, ever vigilant, follow the flow of events, ensuring that the operation remains under her control, while the women under her charge navigate their personal risks. In these moments of pause, you consider the broader social context, how the world outside the brothel often underestimates, judges, or ignores you, yet relies on the services you provide. The paradox is constant, subtle, and impossible to fully resolve. Disease continues to loom as an invisible threat. Infections, some fatal, others chronic, spread quietly, unnoticed until symptoms appear. Knowledge is your defense, yet it is imperfect. You monitor yourself and those around you, noting any signs of fever, sores, or discomfort, and relying on remedies ranging from herbal poultices to early forms of antiseptic treatment. The medieval understanding of medicine is limited, yet practical experience often compensates, allowing women in the trade to survive conditions that might otherwise be fatal. Still, the threat never fully disappears, hanging over every touch, every interaction, every night's work. Night brings its own rituals. Clothing is adjusted, hair is checked, and small tokens, ribbons, beads, or charms are readjusted or replaced. These are not mere vanity. They serve as tools of negotiation, indicators of status, and protective symbols. The presentation of oneself is as much about survival as about attraction. Each day leaves traces physical, emotional, and social that must be managed, concealed, or leveraged to maintain both safety and opportunity. By night's end, you are a master of this subtle choreography, a performer in a theatre of survival that stretches across the shadowed rooms of the brothel and the muted streets of the town beyond. As midnight approaches, the final clients of the day arrive. Fatigue is profound, yet the necessity of engagement remains. You respond with a precision born of experience, balancing exhaustion with the imperatives of survival and profit. Each encounter is brief, yet intense in significance. Misjudgment, even at this hour, can have immediate repercussions. Success, however, is quietly celebrated, a small triumph in a long day of calculated endurance. You move through these hours with practiced care, mindful of both the immediate and the long-term consequences of your actions. The last client departs, and a rare quiet settles over the brothel. You have survived another day, navigating the myriad hazards, challenges, and negotiations that define your life. Coins have been earned, threats avoided or mitigated, and minor alliances reinforced. Yet, survival, while significant, is not victory. Every day is a series of precarious triumphs, delicate balances maintained through skill, vigilance, and sometimes chance. The work you have done, invisible to most, has tangible consequences, shaping your life, and, in small ways, the functioning of the town itself. Before rest, there is reflection. The events of the day replay in fragments. Interactions with clients, whispered conversations, moments of tension and relief, small successes, and narrowly avoided dangers. Each element contributes to an ongoing education in the subtleties of human behavior, societal structures, and personal resilience. The experience of a medieval harlot is, paradoxically, both intensely private and deeply social. It is lived in enclosed rooms, yet shaped by the rhythms, judgments, and expectations of the broader town. It is a life defined by meticulous attention to detail, constant calculation, and a profound awareness of the precariousness of existence. As you finally settle to rest in the small shared room, the walls closing in with the muted scent of smoke and other lives, a final thought persists. The life of a harlot is measured not by fame, wealth, or social standing, but by survival itself, day after day, year after year, against forces that are often indifferent, hostile, or invisible. And yet, within this survival, there is knowledge, skill, and resilience that few outside this world can truly comprehend. You have endured, navigated, and adapted. You have lived within constraints imposed by society, circumstance, and fate, shaping the contours of your existence in ways both subtle and profound. The day ends, but the rhythm continues. Tomorrow will demand the same vigilance, skill, and endurance, yet with its own unique challenges. In the quiet, you wonder, will the patterns of this life ever shift? Will fortune or misfortune tilt the balance in ways you cannot foresee? And as sleep finally claims you, the most enduring truth becomes clear. The life of a medieval harlot is one of constant negotiation, delicate balance, and unyielding resilience. A story of humanity persevering quietly in the shadows, largely unnoticed, but profoundly essential. Reflection. The life of a medieval harlot teaches us about the human capacity for resilience under social, economic, and physical constraints. Their survival strategies, subtle social skills, and ability to navigate a hostile environment leave traces of history that challenge our assumptions about agency, labor, and the overlooked forces that shaped medieval life. The economy of desire in medieval towns was neither simple nor static. It operated alongside markets for grain, cloth, and livestock, yet existed in a shadowed corner of society where legality, morality, and social acceptance intersected unpredictably. If you are a harlot, understanding this economy is not a choice, it is survival. Every coin matters, every negotiation carries consequences, and the dynamics of supply and demand extend beyond the mere exchange of money for pleasure. In the morning, as the sun rises over the tiled rooftops and cobbled streets, you are already calculating, what will the day yield? Who will pay fairly? And how will you allocate the coin earned to ensure both survival and a measure of safety? Payment comes in many forms. In some brothels, a flat fee is demanded, often collected by the madam or proprietor, who takes a portion as a form of rent or tax on the labor provided. In others, negotiations are conducted client by client, based on perceived desirability, the skill of the harlot, and the expected length or nature of the encounter. Coins may be silver, copper, or, rarely, gold. In towns with fluctuating economies or nearby conflicts, the value of coin itself can shift, affecting the daily wage of sex workers. You quickly learn to identify the weight and sound of coins, to sense hesitation in a client's offer, and to adjust your behavior accordingly. Misjudging either the worth of money or the temperament of a client can leave you underpaid, or worse, in debt to the madam or the town's authorities. Bartering is another method of economic exchange. Clients sometimes offer goods instead of coin, cloth, food, jewelry, or other tangible assets. These items are not only a substitute for currency, but a form of security in a world where coin can be scarce. Such exchanges carry their own complications. You must evaluate the true value of goods, anticipate whether they can be traded or sold, and assess whether they bring more advantage than simple cash. A piece of fine cloth may allow you to patch a gown or decorate a room, but it is also heavy to carry and may attract unwanted attention. You learn to weigh practicality against immediate gratification and long-term utility, a skill that stretches beyond the bedroom into everyday survival. The pricing of services is influenced by multiple variables: age, appearance, and skill affect value, but so too do social perception and market saturation. In towns where many women ply their trade, competition can drive prices lower, forcing harlots to innovate through charm, skill, or strategic alliances to maintain income. Wealthier patrons often command the highest prices, but they also bring unpredictability. Their expectations may exceed what can safely be offered, requiring careful negotiation and, at times, refusal. Meanwhile, ordinary townsfolk may offer modest fees, but provide safer, more predictable encounters. You are constantly calculating risk versus reward, profit versus safety, a mental ledger maintained through years of experience. Brothel owners and madams serve as both gatekeepers and economic regulators. They often dictate minimum fees, impose rules about clientele, and monitor interactions to ensure profit. Yet their own interests may conflict with your well-being. A madam may insist on a particular arrangement that maximizes her revenue, but leaves you exposed to dangerous clients or underpaid for your labor. The negotiation of agency within this hierarchy is subtle and constant. Survival depends on maintaining favor with the madam, while asserting your own boundaries sufficiently to preserve safety and dignity. These micro-negotiations happen daily, silently, and with lasting consequences. Debt is a pervasive concern. When coin is not available up front, advances may be offered on the promise of future payment. Such arrangements can quickly become traps. One must calculate precisely how much is owed, what portion of future earnings is required, and how to avoid entanglement that reduces autonomy. Mistakes, miscalculations, or illness can render repayment impossible, leaving women vulnerable to both social and physical repercussions. The line between temporary hardship and permanent jeopardy is thin, and maintaining control over one's economic standing is an ongoing struggle. Clients themselves are unpredictable elements in this economy. Some are generous, providing more than agreed in exchange for perceived skill or charm. Others are parsimonious, attempting to reduce payment or exploit the provider's need for money. Strategies evolve accordingly. Some women maintain a repertoire of persuasive gestures and speech to encourage higher payment, while others rely on subtle manipulation, social knowledge, or, at times, the threat of complaint to the madam or guild authorities. Each interaction is simultaneously a financial transaction and a negotiation of power, respect, and survival. Beyond the direct exchange of money or goods, women often develop secondary strategies to ensure sustainability. Saving a portion of daily earnings, discreetly storing goods, or cultivating relationships with wealthier, recurring clients are all methods of stabilizing income. These strategies are subtle and require foresight. It is not merely the day-to-day survival that matters, but the accumulation of small advantages that can mitigate future risks, illness, legal trouble, or economic fluctuation in the town. Those who neglect such planning risk disaster, while those who anticipate and adapt can maintain relative stability despite the precarious nature of their profession. The broader economic environment also shapes the value of labor. Harvest seasons, religious festivals, and market days all influence the flow of clients and the prices they are willing to pay. Town politics, taxation, and the presence of soldiers or merchants from other regions introduce additional variables. Economic fluctuations can be abrupt and dramatic. A sudden shortage of coin, a plague, or a riot can shift demand and value almost overnight. Women in the trade must constantly monitor these external forces, adjusting strategies and expectations to ensure continued survival. Observing the town's rhythms, its markets, holidays, and gatherings is as crucial as mastering negotiation with individual clients. Gender and social hierarchies further complicate the economic landscape. Women in the trade occupy a marginal position. Their labor is necessary and yet stigmatized. Town officials often ignore or regulate them inconsistently, creating a patchwork of opportunity and vulnerability. Wealthier clients may view harlots as disposable, yet rely on their services regularly. The ability to navigate these contradictions, maintaining dignity, securing payment, and avoiding danger becomes an essential skill. Economic survival is inseparable from social intelligence, observation, and strategic alliances. Even with all skill and foresight, luck and circumstance remain critical variables. A patron might disappear without paying, a madam may demand unexpected dues, or illness may render a day's labor impossible. The economy of desire is not predictable. It is shaped by human behavior, chance, and social structures that often disadvantage the women providing labor. Adaptability, vigilance, and resilience are not merely personal virtues, they are economic imperatives. As afternoon merges into evening, the patterns of the day crystallize in your mind. Coins are counted, goods assessed, debts noted. You know what has been earned, what remains due, and what strategies will be required for the coming days. The rhythm of survival is clear: negotiation, observation, skill, and endurance. Yet, even mastery of these elements cannot guarantee security. The variables beyond your control, health, client behavior, societal judgment, remain ever present, influencing outcomes in ways that cannot always be anticipated. And so, as you pause in the quiet moment before the evening rush, a question lingers. In a profession governed by so many unpredictable factors, how much can skill and strategy truly shape outcomes, and how much is left to the capricious hand of fate? As the day unfolds, the economic strategies of a medieval harlot extend far beyond simple transactions. By mid-afternoon, the intricacies of survival have become second nature. You are no longer merely accepting clients and collecting payment. You are constantly analyzing patterns, assessing opportunities, and managing relationships with both patrons and fellow workers. In a sense, the brothel functions as a microcosm of the broader town economy, with its own rules, hierarchies, and market forces, rules that, if understood and navigated carefully, can make the difference between relative security and dangerous precarity. One of the most significant economic skills is client assessment. Not all coin is equal. Wealthier clients often require more effort, more tact, and more subtle negotiation. But they also provide the potential for larger rewards. A merchant or visiting noble may be willing to pay handsomely for discretion or special attention, and cultivating such patrons is a long-term strategy. Relationships with repeat clients are invaluable. They reduce uncertainty, provide predictable income, and can sometimes offer protection against rivals or legal threats. Yet they also carry risks. Familiarity can lead to over-familiarity, pushing boundaries in ways that must be managed carefully. Lower-tier clients, on the other hand, are plentiful but inconsistent. Their payments may be modest and their behavior less predictable, yet they form the backbone of daily income. The key lies in volume, efficiency, and risk management. Serving these clients requires balancing speed with vigilance, ensuring that interactions remain safe while maximizing gain. Women in the trade develop an intuitive sense of timing, pacing their interactions to maintain stamina while still engaging effectively. Every encounter is a delicate negotiation, a test of skill and foresight that extends far beyond the mere exchange of money for labor. The brothel itself imposes economic pressures. Madams set quotas, claim portions of earnings, and maintain authority over clientele. These systems can be oppressive, yet they also provide a framework for survival. A madam's oversight ensures that certain standards are maintained, clients are managed, and conflicts within the establishment are moderated. Women learn to navigate these structures, balancing compliance with autonomy. Those who fail to maintain favor risk being marginalized, losing access to profitable clients, or incurring fines. The ability to read power dynamics, anticipate expectations, and act accordingly becomes as crucial as negotiating with individual patrons. debt and credit are constant considerations. In many cases, clients or madams extend temporary advances, expecting repayment over time. Accepting such arrangements requires careful calculation. Can future earnings cover the debt, and at what personal or professional cost? Failing to repay can lead to punishment, reduced autonomy, or social marginalization. These financial calculations occur alongside the ever-present risks of illness, violence, and unpredictable client behavior. The medieval harlot's economy is therefore a delicate balancing act. Every coin, every favor, every exchange carries multiple layers of consequence. Beyond individual transactions, women often develop strategies to secure economic stability over time. Some invest small portions of earnings in goods that can be resold: cloth, spices, or trinkets purchased from markets or wealthy clients. Others cultivate relationships that provide occasional gifts or assistance. A discreet patron might offer food, clothing, or small sums of coin, reducing immediate vulnerability. The ability to think beyond the day-to-day, to anticipate future needs and opportunities, is a critical component of economic survival. It transforms the profession from a series of reactive measures into a proactive strategy for maintaining autonomy and well-being. Reputation is another form of currency. In a society where social standing, gossip, and perception shape opportunity, being known as reliable, discreet, or skilled can increase income and reduce risk. Conversely, a reputation for recklessness, uncleanliness, or conflict invites exploitation, underpayment, or danger. Women in the trade navigate this carefully, moderating their behavior both within the brothel and in the broader town. Every interaction carries a reputational weight, influencing not only immediate financial outcomes, but also long-term survival prospects. Managing social perception is therefore inseparable from economic strategy. Legal and societal pressures further complicate the economics of desire. While brothels often exist in tolerated or semi-regulated spaces, raids, fines, and moral policing are common threats. Laws are inconsistently applied. Enforcement may depend on the whim of a local official, the influence of the church, or the presence of wealthier patrons willing to intervene. Economic survival, therefore, requires an understanding of legal risk, the ability to negotiate or avoid authorities, and the cultivation of protective alliances. Knowledge of these dynamics, who has power when enforcement occurs, and how to remain discreet, can dramatically affect earnings and personal safety. Disease, ever present, carries economic implications as well as physical ones. Illness can prevent work for days or weeks, depleting both income and savings. Women may invest in herbal remedies, seek out medical advice when possible, or rely on community knowledge to mitigate risk. Yet these measures are imperfect, and financial planning must account for potential interruptions in work. The unpredictability of health intertwines with the unpredictability of clients and market forces, reinforcing the necessity of foresight and careful management of resources. The social ecology of the brothel also plays a role in economic strategy. Alliances between women allow for shared information, mutual protection, and coordinated approaches to clients. Rivalries, conversely, can reduce opportunities and increase risk. Navigating these dynamics requires a sophisticated understanding of interpersonal relationships, power, and negotiation. Women who master these social economies can increase income, reduce vulnerability, and position themselves advantageously within the establishment. By late afternoon, the broader patterns of the town's economy become more apparent. Market rhythms, seasonal variations, and local events influence both supply and demand for services. Religious observances, fairs, and visiting dignitaries can drastically alter client behavior and income potential. Observing these patterns, planning ahead, and adjusting strategies accordingly are essential skills. The harlot who neglects such macroeconomic awareness risks missing opportunities, encountering greater risk, or falling behind financially. Survival is not merely a matter of daily transactions. It is a continuous negotiation with both immediate circumstances and the larger social and economic environment. Even after hours of careful negotiation, observation, and labor, uncertainty remains. Clients may fail to pay, illness may strike, or authorities may intervene unexpectedly. Every success is tentative, every gain potentially reversed. Economic life in the brothel is therefore a blend of skill, calculation, and resilience, tempered by the recognition that not all variables can be controlled. The balance between preparation and contingency, between opportunity and risk, defines the rhythm of survival. And yet, amid these challenges, there is a quiet ingenuity. The strategies developed: client assessment, negotiation, alliance formation, resource management, represent a sophisticated understanding of economic and social dynamics. Honed through necessity, they are subtle, often invisible to outsiders, yet remarkably effective. In a world where survival is contingent on both skill and circumstance, the ability to navigate the economy of desire is itself a testament to adaptability, intelligence, and endurance. As the afternoon merges into evening, the question that lingers is unavoidable. In a profession where so much depends on negotiation, reputation, and chance, how can one truly measure success? Is survival sufficient, or is economic mastery, maintaining stability, maximizing opportunities, and mitigating risk the ultimate goal? And perhaps more importantly, what does this reveal about the broader society that both relies on and marginalizes the labor of these women? Night falls over the town, and the brothel hums with a different rhythm than during the day. Candles flicker in small niches along the walls, their light reflecting in the uneven surfaces of worn furniture and polished coins. The late clients are arriving, some affluent, seeking discretion and prolonged companionship. Others, ordinary townsfolk, quieter than earlier in the day, yet just as essential to the daily economy. By now, you are acutely aware that the day's success is measured not merely in coin collected, but in the navigation of risk, reputation, and opportunity. Evening clients often command higher stakes. Their behavior can be unpredictable, ranging from polite negotiation to abrupt aggression. They carry wealth, influence, and occasionally danger, and your assessment must be immediate. Subtle gestures, a tilt of the head, a shift in posture, a careful modulation of tone communicate competence, discretion, and skill, all while preserving safety. This interplay of behavior, perception, and financial exchange is a delicate form of performance, a negotiation that is simultaneously social, economic, and personal. Every encounter is layered, fraught with opportunity and hazard, yet mastered only through experience and vigilance. Payment, at this hour, can vary widely. Some clients are generous, providing more than agreed, and such largesse can tip a day from modest success to significant advantage. Others are parsimonious, hesitant, or even deceitful, requiring careful management and sometimes strategic confrontation. The ability to recognize, respond to, and shape these interactions is central to economic survival. Coins clink softly in hands, barter exchanges are evaluated for practical value, and relationships with repeat clients continue to yield subtle dividends. Each transaction carries not only immediate reward, but a potential impact on future stability. Debt, both real and perceived, is a constant companion. Advances extended by the madam or by clients must be carefully repaid, often under close observation. A misstep, an overdrawn expectation, an unpaid sum, a misunderstanding can lead to punishment, social ostracism, or lost opportunities. These financial tensions are woven into every day of work, forming a backdrop against which each negotiation, each interaction, and each decision is measured. The ability to manage debt, conserve resources, and anticipate future demands separates those who endure from those who falter. The social economy within the brothel is equally critical. Alliances among women provide protection, guidance, and information. Sharing knowledge about clients, disputes, and market trends strengthens collective security, while rivalries, jealousy, and competition can undermine income and safety. Women who navigate these relationships, skillfully cultivating loyalty, managing conflict, and leveraging networks, gain subtle advantages. They can access better clients, anticipate trouble, and maintain a degree of autonomy, even under the watchful eyes of madams or authorities. Social intelligence becomes as vital as economic acumen, a tool for survival and advancement. Disease and health concerns shape economic calculations as well. Illness can remove days or weeks of work from the ledger, eroding both immediate income and long-term stability. Remedies are improvised, ranging from herbal treatments to folk medicine, and while some measures provide relief, they are rarely guaranteed. Women in the trade must consider potential health risks in every encounter, often balancing the need for income against the risk of infection or physical harm. The cost of poor health is measured not only in pain, but in diminished economic capacity. Seasonal, political, and social fluctuations further influence outcomes. Market days, fairs, religious festivals, and visiting dignitaries can dramatically alter the flow of clients and coin. Wars, famines, and outbreaks of plague reshape local economies, affecting both the availability of wealth and the stability of social networks. Women who understand these rhythms, anticipating demand spikes, recognizing periods of scarcity, and adjusting strategies accordingly, gain a crucial edge. Knowledge of the town's broader economy transforms survival from a reactive endeavor into a proactive one. By late night, after hours of careful calculation, negotiation, and engagement, the day's ledger is clear. Coins are counted, debts reconciled, and goods or gifts assessed for utility and value. Success is measured not in luxury but in survival, stability, and the capacity to continue another day. Some nights conclude with quiet relief, the knowledge that risk was managed, income secured, and danger avoided. Others carry tension, uncertainty, or disappointment. Yet even these moments provide lessons that inform strategy, refine judgment, and prepare for future challenges. Reflection in these final hours highlights the resilience demanded by this life. Economic survival is inseparable from skill, awareness, and adaptability. Women develop expertise not only in negotiation and client management, but in resource allocation, social diplomacy, and situational intelligence. Each coin earned represents a complex interplay of calculation, skill, and risk, underscoring that, even in a profession marginalized and stigmatized by society, labor carries both tangible and invisible value. It is a mastery of subtle, high-stakes survival, largely invisible to those outside the trade. Yet, even with mastery, uncertainty remains. External forces, illness, legal action, the unpredictability of patrons, or the caprices of social structures persist. The day may have ended favorably, but tomorrow brings new variables. The constant negotiation between opportunity, risk, and resource management defines the rhythm of life. The economy of desire is not a static ledger, but a dynamic, ongoing challenge that tests resilience, intelligence, and endurance at every turn. In the quiet moments before sleep, you reflect on the paradox of your position. Your labor is essential to the town's social and economic ecosystem, yet socially marginalized. Your skills are sophisticated and nuanced, yet largely invisible. Your survival requires strategic thinking, social acumen, and physical endurance, yet the broader society often regards your existence with disdain or neglect. This juxtaposition, the essential yet unrecognized nature of the work, frames the daily life of every medieval harlot. As the candles burn low, a question lingers. In a society that both depends upon and devalues your labor, what does economic success truly mean? Is it the accumulation of coin, the cultivation of stability, or the mastery of subtle survival strategies? And beyond personal outcomes, what does this reveal about the broader economy and moral fabric of a medieval town, where human labor is valued differently depending on social perception rather than intrinsic worth? This reflection, like the day itself, is unresolved. The work continues, as does the subtle negotiation between skill, circumstance, and chance, a negotiation that defines not only economic survival, but the persistent resilience of those who navigate the hidden and shadowed corridors of medieval society. The day begins, as always, in the dimly lit rooms of the brothel, where the scent of smoke, sweat, and faintly perfumed oils hangs heavily in the air. Life here is precarious, and one of the most constant threats is not the occasional difficult client or the madam's oversight, but disease, particularly venereal disease, which in medieval Europe is widespread, mysterious, and poorly understood. If you are a woman in this environment, your knowledge of illness, prevention, and treatment is as crucial as your skill in negotiation or charm. The presence of sickness is never abstract. It is immediate, palpable, and threatening to both income and life itself. Hygiene, though basic by modern standards, is an essential first line of defense. Water is scarce, and bathing facilities are often communal, minimal, or entirely absent. Women develop practical routines, washing hands and faces, scrubbing down shared surfaces, and airing sheets whenever possible. Scent is both a practical and social consideration. Perfumes, oils, and herbs are used not merely for appeal, but also for the hope that strong aromas can deter disease or mask signs of illness. Soap, when available, is precious, often homemade from animal fat and ash, and used sparingly. Cleanliness is a continual negotiation between practicality, survival, and the expectations of clients, who often equate a woman's appearance with her skill, health, and worth. Venereal disease, syphilis, gonorrhea, and other infections looms as the greatest invisible threat. Medical knowledge is limited, with causes poorly understood and remedies largely experimental. Women rely on practical experience and folk wisdom to recognize early symptoms: sores, unusual discharge, fevers, or fatigue. The warning signs are observed not only in oneself, but in clients and colleagues. Treatments are improvisational: poultices made from herbs, mercury ointments, and various concoctions applied to the body. Some remedies are partially effective, others harmful. Knowledge of these methods spreads through networks of women, shared quietly in whispers over meals or during brief moments of privacy. Survival depends on recognizing symptoms early and taking action quickly. Illness carries consequences far beyond the physical. A sick woman cannot work, and lost income jeopardizes her ability to pay rent, debts, or bribes to the madam or authorities. In this economy, health is directly linked to survival. Women develop informal systems of care, tending to each other in illness and providing advice on remedies or protective practices. Some share herbal concoctions, while others assist in maintaining cleanliness or monitoring clients to prevent further exposure. This communal knowledge is a lifeline, a blend of practical experience, observation, and cautious experimentation that sustains life in a precarious world. The understanding of disease is entangled with superstition and moral judgment. Many in the town, including some authorities and physicians, view illness as a punishment for sin or a reflection of moral failure. This stigma complicates access to treatment and social support, forcing women to navigate both the physical dangers of disease and the social consequences of being known as ill. Concealment, discretion, and subtle strategies for obtaining remedies without drawing attention are critical. A misstep could result in loss of clients, social censure, or worse, violent punishment in extreme cases. Treatment methods are varied, localized, and often dangerous. Mercury, applied topically or ingested in small doses, is a common remedy for syphilis, though its toxic properties often cause more harm than healing. Herbal infusions, poultices, and ointments are widely used, relying on empirical knowledge passed down through generations. Baths with aromatic herbs, gargles of wine and spices, or topical pastes are employed to alleviate symptoms. Women experiment, share, and adapt these methods, creating a form of practical medicine that exists outside formal institutions, yet is rooted in careful observation of outcomes. Survival requires discernment. Which remedy is likely to help, which will harm, and which is simply a way to maintain appearances while avoiding greater risk. Illness also interacts with the economy of desire. A visibly sick woman risks reduced income, fewer clients, and lower payments. Sometimes women must work despite early symptoms, balancing risk to health with the need for income. In these cases, discretion becomes paramount. Concealing signs of infection, applying treatments between encounters, and relying on quick improvisation to maintain functionality. The negotiation of visibility, what clients see, what colleagues know, what the madam observes is critical to maintaining economic and social stability. Beyond venereal disease, other medical threats are pervasive. Respiratory infections, fevers, and digestive problems spread easily in shared living spaces, exacerbated by poor ventilation, contaminated water, and minimal sanitation. Wounds or injuries incurred in accidents or altercations may become infected, necessitating careful cleaning and treatment. Pregnancy and childbirth are ever-present realities, with limited access to skilled midwives or safe medical care. Each of these conditions affects economic capacity, social standing, and personal survival. Knowledge of practical remedies, herbal applications, careful rest, and observation of symptoms is indispensable. Daily routines are structured around prevention as much as income. Washing, airing linens, resting when possible, and monitoring health are as critical as preparing for clients or negotiating payments. Attention to detail, disciplined observation, and rapid response to emerging symptoms differentiate women who endure from those who fall victim to illness. In this environment, survival is measured not only by economic success, but by the ability to remain healthy enough to continue work, negotiate with clients, and navigate the risks of both society and occupation. Medical knowledge is embedded in a complex web of observation, experimentation, and communication. Women share insights with trusted colleagues, learn from the experience of more senior workers, and integrate information from visiting physicians, apothecaries, or herbalists when possible. This informal education is ongoing, adaptive, and highly practical. It represents a form of expertise, rarely recognized by official medical authorities, yet essential for daily survival. In this context, learning is continuous. Experience is the teacher, and observation is a vital skill. As the day moves toward afternoon, the interplay of health, work, and economic necessity becomes ever more apparent. A small misstep, a missed cleaning, a poorly treated wound, a misjudged client can have cascading consequences. Vigilance is relentless, and the body itself becomes both tool and territory, to be managed, monitored, and protected. The demands of hygiene, treatment, and concealment are woven into every interaction, subtly shaping social behavior, client selection, and negotiation tactics. In the midst of these routines, one enduring question persists. Even with careful attention, shared knowledge, and practical remedies, can a woman truly control her health in an environment where risk is constant, medical understanding is limited, and social structures offer minimal support? The threat of disease is relentless, and survival is never guaranteed. Yet the resilience, ingenuity, and adaptability of women in the brothel suggest that even in the shadows of neglect and danger, life persists, strategies evolve, and knowledge accumulates quietly, persistently, and often unseen. By mid-afternoon, the rhythm of the brothel is well established. Yet, underlying this rhythm is the constant awareness of illness and the risk it carries. The women here, seasoned by years of experience, have developed intricate systems to manage both health and the perception of it. Disease is never only a medical problem. It is deeply entwined with economic survival, social relationships, and personal safety. A fever, an abscess, or a visible sore is not merely a bodily issue. It is a potential loss of income, a threat to reputation, and a challenge to autonomy. Managing health requires ingenuity, observation, and collaboration, skills honed quietly over many long days. Preventative practices are foundational. Women often begin the day with washing routines, using whatever water is available to cleanse hands, faces, and bodies. Herbs such as rosemary, sage, or lavender may be added to water or oils, believed to disinfect, ward off infection, or mask odors. Linen and clothing are aired or washed whenever possible, sometimes layered with powdered herbs to reduce moisture and contamination. Even in the smallest details, folding bed sheets, arranging personal items, and cleaning shared spaces, practical knowledge of hygiene intersects with superstition and social expectation. A brothel that appears clean inspires confidence in clients and reduces the risk of illness spreading among workers. Observation and early detection are crucial skills. Women monitor themselves, their colleagues, and clients for signs of illness. Subtle changes in skin, fatigue, irritability, or unexplained sores. Patterns are noted and remembered, forming a mental map of who may carry risk and which interactions might be unsafe. Knowledge gained through years of practice is shared discreetly, often in hushed conversations during quiet moments. Senior women mentor newcomers, passing on guidance on recognizing symptoms, applying remedies, and navigating the precarious intersection of health and labor. These informal networks of knowledge and mentorship are vital for survival. Treatments are diverse, experimental, and sometimes dangerous. Mercury-based ointments, applied to treat venereal disease, are known to alleviate some symptoms, but carry the risk of poisoning if misused. Herbal preparations, ointments, poultices, and decoctions are more common and rely on observation of past successes and failures. Wine, vinegar, garlic, and other kitchen staples are repurposed as disinfectants or topical applications. Remedies are often layered. A poultice may be applied, followed by herbal oils, while internal tonics attempt to strengthen the body. Though limited in scientific understanding, these approaches represent sophisticated empirical knowledge, developed in response to the harsh realities of the work and the constant presence of disease. Social strategies are as important as medical ones. Illness must often be concealed to maintain economic viability. Visible sores or a reputation for sickness can result in reduced clients, fines, or eviction from the brothel. Women may use clothing, veils, or positioning to obscure symptoms while carefully managing client interactions. Colleagues may assist by monitoring visitors, providing herbal treatments between appointments, or creating a buffer that prevents exposure to high-risk clients. Concealment, discretion, and subtle protection are not mere tactics. They are lifelines in an environment where social judgment and economic survival are tightly linked. Economic pressures influence decisions about health. A woman who falls ill faces immediate threats to income. Debt obligations to the madam or other patrons may not wait for recovery. Many continue to work while sick, balancing risk to their own body with the need to maintain financial stability. These decisions are calculated, not reckless. Timing appointments, limiting physical contact, and applying remedies discreetly are strategies that allow labor to continue despite the presence of disease. In this way, the intersection of health, economy, and social perception defines daily choices with constant precision. Mental and emotional resilience is a necessary counterbalance to physical vulnerability. Awareness of disease and potential exposure can create anxiety, yet panic is dangerous. Maintaining composure reassures clients and colleagues alike, stabilizing both income and social cohesion. Coping strategies include rest, discreet private moments, communication with trusted peers, and careful observation of the surrounding environment. Psychological endurance is inseparable from physical survival, influencing the ability to negotiate transactions, detect risk, and manage the unpredictable behavior of clients. Knowledge of the town's medical landscape is also vital. Physicians, apothecaries, and healers exist, though their services are often expensive, limited, or biased by social hierarchy. Some women seek advice or treatment, cautiously navigating social and economic constraints. Others rely entirely on peer networks and personal experience. Recognizing trustworthy sources, avoiding charlatans, and evaluating remedies critically are essential skills. The brothel itself often becomes a center for medical intelligence, where knowledge circulates quietly, shaped by collective experience rather than formal authority. Disease also carries moral and social weight. Clients, authorities, and even other townsfolk often attribute illness to moral failure, a perspective that increases stigma and complicates access to care. This social judgment forces women to navigate secrecy and discretion carefully, managing both the physical risks of infection and the reputational risks that could impact economic survival. Balancing visibility with concealment, maintaining reputation while addressing health concerns, becomes a daily negotiation with multiple layers of consequence. By late afternoon, patterns of infection, treatment, and survival begin to inform decisions for the evening. Women evaluate which clients to accept, how to minimize exposure, and when to rest. Protective routines, herbal washes, careful clothing adjustments, and strategic scheduling are enacted with precision. Every movement, word, and action reflects accumulated knowledge, balancing risk, opportunity, and necessity. The management of disease is therefore an ongoing process, integrated into the rhythm of labor, social interaction, and economic survival. And yet, despite these strategies, uncertainty remains. The nature of disease, the limitations of contemporary medicine, and the unpredictable behavior of clients mean that even the most careful measures cannot guarantee safety. Survival depends on vigilance, adaptability, and shared knowledge. Combined with a measure of luck, the persistent question lingers. In an environment dominated by invisible threats and imperfect remedies, can women truly maintain control over their health, or does disease remain an ever-present arbiter of fate? The resilience demonstrated in the brothel suggests a quiet mastery over circumstances that most townsfolk would not even recognize. Through observation, experimentation, social cooperation, and practical ingenuity, women develop strategies that allow them not only to survive, but to continue their work, earning income and maintaining relative autonomy. Yet each day ends with uncertainty. A new client, a minor injury, a previously undetected illness can disrupt even the most carefully orchestrated plans. Survival is never guaranteed, only negotiated through skill, vigilance, and adaptability. As the afternoon light fades and evening draws near, one thought persists. In a world where disease is invisible, remedies imperfect, and social judgment ever present, how much of survival is a result of skill and foresight, and how much is determined by chance and circumstance? The answer is never fully known, leaving an open-ended tension that shapes each decision, each encounter, and each day of life in the medieval brothel. Night has fully descended, and the brothel takes on a quieter, more reflective rhythm. Candles flicker along the walls, their uneven light revealing the worn textures of furniture, the faint scent of herbs, and the subtle signs of exhaustion on the faces of the women who inhabit this precarious space. The day's labor is done, but the invisible threats remain. Disease lingers. The body carries minor aches or lingering symptoms, and the awareness of past infections is never far from mind. Here, survival is not measured solely by coin earned, but by the continued ability to navigate both health and danger with intelligence and foresight. Evening clients bring a different kind of pressure. Some are wealthier, more discreet, and therefore more profitable, yet they may also pose greater risk. A sudden fever, an unnoticed symptom, or the stress of overwork could compromise safety or reputation. Each encounter requires careful judgment, observing behavior, monitoring personal health, and managing risk while maintaining the economic imperative to work. In these moments, knowledge of remedies, preventive routines, and subtle signs of illness becomes not just useful, but essential for immediate survival. Treatment practices that were applied earlier in the day are now reassessed. Herbal poultices may be reapplied, cleansed linens rotated, and protective measures reinforced. The workday has demanded constant vigilance, yet these routines continue even as fatigue sets in. Sleep cannot come until the body has been attended to. Discomfort or untreated symptoms threaten both health and the ability to function the following day. Survival is a continuum, an unbroken cycle of observation, intervention, and preparation. that stretches across every waking hour of life in the brothel. The social dimension of disease remains intertwined with medical survival. Women provide care to one another, applying treatments, monitoring symptoms, and offering practical advice. This informal network of knowledge and mutual support is essential. It allows the community to detect early warning signs, share strategies, and provide assistance when economic or physical limitations prevent one from managing alone. Social intelligence, empathy, and cooperation become tools for survival. Just as crucial as any poultice or herbal infusion, economic pressures continue to shape medical decisions. Illness reduces the ability to earn, and delayed treatment can have cascading consequences. Women often balance the need for rest or medical attention with the immediate requirement to maintain income. The interplay between health and economy is constant. A missed client could jeopardize debt repayment, reduce daily earnings, or diminish standing with the madam. These calculations occur in real time, influencing behavior, client selection, and work patterns. The brothel is as much a site of economic negotiation as it is a medical battlefield. Even with the best strategies, uncertainty persists. Diseases that were poorly understood, syphilis, gonorrhea, and other infections, cannot be fully controlled. Remedies are partially effective at best, and preventive measures reduce risk but do not eliminate it. Each day carries the latent possibility of illness, forcing continuous adaptation. The combination of skill, vigilance, and practical knowledge becomes the best defense against this uncertainty. Yet the limits of medieval medicine are always present, shaping both behavior and the social perception of health. The night also reveals the emotional dimensions of survival. Women carry fatigue, worry, and the subtle anxieties of exposure and vulnerability. Mental resilience is cultivated alongside physical vigilance. Maintaining composure reassures clients and colleagues, reduces conflict, and preserves economic stability. In the absence of formal medical support, psychological endurance is as critical as herbal remedies or hygienic routines. The capacity to manage fear, stress, and uncertainty directly impacts both survival and economic security. Cumulative experience is a silent teacher. Years of observing symptoms, applying treatments, and managing risk provide women with a form of expertise unmatched by most outside the brothel. This knowledge is empirical, adaptive, and socially embedded. It encompasses remedies, preventive strategies, interpersonal skills, and situational awareness. Though unrecognized by formal institutions, it is the foundation of survival, an invisible infrastructure that allows life to continue despite the many hazards faced daily. As midnight approaches, the brothel quiets. Some women sleep, while others tend minor tasks, airing sheets, preparing herbal infusions, or monitoring ongoing symptoms in colleagues. The cycle of survival is unbroken. Preparation for the next day begins even as exhaustion threatens to overwhelm. The precarious balance of health, economy, and social perception continues to define life, quietly shaping every decision, movement, and interaction. Yet, in the final reflection of the night, one thought persists. Despite limited medical knowledge, imperfect remedies, and constant exposure to disease, women in medieval brothels demonstrate a remarkable capacity for resilience and adaptation. They navigate the invisible hazards of their environment with skill, intelligence, and cooperation, finding ways to survive when formal society offers little support. Their strategies: careful observation, empirical treatment, social alliances, and psychological endurance represent a sophisticated mastery of circumstance that challenges assumptions about marginalization, labor, and human ingenuity. The story ends, not with certainty, but with an enduring question. In an environment where health is precarious, knowledge is incomplete, and the stakes are life and livelihood, how do human ingenuity, social cooperation, and sheer resilience shape survival against the invisible forces of disease? And as history looks back, how much of the silent knowledge preserved in these shadowed corners informs our understanding of medicine, adaptation, and the everyday struggles of survival, the town wakes to the clatter of carts, the cries of vendors, and the murmur of citizens going about their daily business. Yet beneath this bustling surface lies a parallel reality, one governed by suspicion, judgment, and the ever-present threat of legal persecution. If you are a harlot, the workday begins not only with preparation for clients, but also with constant awareness of the authorities who patrol the streets, inspect the brothel, and impose fines or imprisonment with little notice. Laws are inconsistently applied, moral codes are enforced selectively, and the consequences of missteps can be severe. Survival depends as much on navigating the social and legal landscape as on skill or negotiation with clients. In medieval Europe, sex work was tolerated in some towns, yet criminalized in others, often with contradictory regulations that fluctuated according to the whims of magistrates, church officials, or local custom. Brothels might operate openly in designated districts or clandestinely in private homes, always balancing profit with risk. The madam often becomes a central figure in this negotiation, mediating between women and the law, collecting fees, and leveraging relationships with local authorities to minimize disruption. Yet even with such mediation, the threat of raids, fines, or imprisonment is ever present, and the women themselves must remain vigilant. Authorities focus not only on moral enforcement, but also on economic regulation. Licensing fees, fines for infractions, and arbitrary assessments of income can all be imposed. A woman caught without proper documentation, or one suspected of working outside sanctioned spaces, risks financial penalties or imprisonment. The unpredictability of enforcement creates a constant state of alertness. A day of successful labor can be undone in moments by the appearance of a patrol, the suspicion of a neighbor, or the complaint of a rival. Survival requires both compliance and cunning understanding how laws operate in practice, not just in theory. Social marginalization amplifies these pressures. Women in the trade are stigmatized, shunned, or feared by much of the town, yet simultaneously relied upon for services that men of all classes seek. This duality, essential yet vilified, shapes every interaction. Gossip, rumors, and moral censure are weapons that can reduce client flow, invite harassment, or justify legal action. To navigate this, women cultivate social awareness, recognizing hostile neighbors, maintaining discreet appearances, and managing reputations within both the brothel and the broader community. Every action, word, and gesture is scrutinized, and even minor miscalculations can have serious consequences. Punishments are varied and often brutal. Fines are common, yet imprisonment or public shaming is also possible. In some towns, whipping, stocks, or branding might be used as warnings to others, a spectacle that enforces social norms while simultaneously humiliating the individual. Awareness of these risks informs behavior, from client interactions to relationships with colleagues and authorities. Women learn to anticipate inspections, bribes, or complaints, and to act preemptively to mitigate danger. The daily negotiation is as much about avoiding punishment as it is about earning income. The intersection of law, morality, and gender inequality is stark. Men who use the services of harlots often escape the same scrutiny, while women bear disproportionate legal and social consequences. Church authorities reinforce moral hierarchies, preaching condemnation while sometimes offering limited protection or guidance to those who comply with regulations. Understanding these dynamics is essential. Alliances with sympathetic clerics, patrons, or town officials can reduce risk, while misjudgment can lead to harsh penalties. Survival requires a keen sense of the balance of power and the ability to navigate shifting social and legal currents. Legal strategies emerge organically. Some women work primarily in areas known to be tolerated or protected, while others negotiate with local officials to ensure safe passage or client privacy. Bribes, favors, or strategic alliances become currency alongside coin, herbs, and social capital. Knowledge of enforcement patterns when patrols occur, which authorities are sympathetic and which are strict, shapes choices about where and when to work. The madam, often politically savvy, orchestrates these strategies, but each woman must maintain personal awareness and vigilance. Legal understanding becomes a practical tool, integrated seamlessly into the rhythm of daily labor. Marginalization also shapes economic survival. Because social stigma limits legitimate opportunities, women often rely entirely on sex work and related trades for income. The brothel itself becomes both workplace and protective environment, a space where economic and social survival strategies are developed, tested, and shared. Within these walls, women teach each other how to navigate legal risks, manage difficult clients, and maintain income despite societal pressures. Community and cooperation are essential, yet the broader social hierarchy remains hostile, constantly reminding them of vulnerability. Reputation, both among peers and in the wider community, is central. Maintaining a discreet and professional demeanor helps reduce legal scrutiny and social backlash. Gossip, perception, and subtle social cues carry as much weight as official laws. Being labeled reckless, defiant, or non-compliant can invite punishment or exclusion. Women learn to read these signals, adjusting behavior, tone, and visibility accordingly. Survival requires constant attention, not only to the letter of the law, but also to the social landscape that interprets and enforces it informally. By late afternoon, the pressures of legal and social marginalization converge with the routine labor of the brothel. Awareness of inspections, reputational risks, and potential conflicts with the madam overlay the economic calculations of client negotiations. Every movement is purposeful, every encounter observed, every transaction considered, not just for immediate gain, but for its implications in a complex web of legal, social, and economic pressures. Survival is holistic, managing the body, the mind, relationships, and social perception simultaneously. Even with careful vigilance, uncertainty dominates. Legal frameworks are inconsistent. Officials may act capriciously. Moral standards fluctuate, and enforcement is uneven. A woman may complete a day of labor successfully, only to face fines or harassment unexpectedly. This unpredictability requires constant adaptation and mental resilience. Those who endure are adept at improvisation, negotiation, and observation, able to anticipate danger while maintaining income, reputation, and safety. And yet, even within this precarious reality, a remarkable subtlety emerges. Women develop an intricate understanding of power, law, and social perception. They negotiate, adapt, and survive within a system that is largely stacked against them, using skill, experience, and alliances to protect themselves while continuing to work. The intersection of legal pressure and social marginalization is both oppressive and instructive, shaping daily life in ways that are often invisible to the broader society. As the day concludes, one question persists. How much of survival in this hostile legal and social environment is determined by skill and strategy, and how much is the product of luck, circumstance, and the occasional leniency of those in power? The answer is never certain, leaving a lingering tension that defines the rhythm of life for every woman navigating the precarious legal and moral landscape of medieval towns. As evening approaches, the brothel is a hive of both visible activity and invisible vigilance. Women move with purpose, preparing for the night's clientele, yet every step is informed by an acute awareness of the law, social judgment, and potential hazards. Survival in this environment demands far more than charm or skill with clients. It requires sophisticated strategies for navigating social hierarchies, understanding legal loopholes, and building protective networks that can shield against both official scrutiny and public censure. The first strategy is spatial awareness. Certain districts in towns are tolerated, sometimes even regulated, while others are patrolled heavily or socially hostile. A woman's knowledge of these zones, the streets where authorities rarely inspect, the taverns where patrons congregate discreetly, the alleyways that provide shortcuts or escape routes, is as crucial as her knowledge of hygiene or negotiation. Brothel owners and madams often hold this knowledge collectively, But individual women develop their own spatial intelligence, learning where it is safest to walk, meet clients, or store valuables. Even a seemingly mundane decision, like which window to open or which doorway to use, is a calculated choice, balancing convenience, income, and risk of exposure. Relationships with authorities are another form of survival. Bribes, favors, or carefully cultivated alliances can reduce the frequency of raids, increase tolerance for informal arrangements, or even provide advance warning of inspections. Madams often serve as intermediaries, negotiating on behalf of their employees. But personal relationships remain crucial. A friendly town guard or sympathetic magistrate can mean the difference between a minor warning and incarceration. Building and maintaining these relationships requires social intelligence, subtlety, and discretion. The line between influence and compromise is thin, and misjudgment can invite harsh consequences. Social alliances within the brothel are equally critical. Women share information about patrol schedules, troublesome clients, and legal requirements. More experienced women mentor newcomers, teaching them not only how to navigate client interactions, but also how to avoid legal entanglements. These informal educational networks form a kind of internal, legal, and social infrastructure, allowing collective experience to compensate for the limitations of official knowledge. Trust is paramount. Sharing sensitive information with the wrong person can lead to exposure, fines, or social censure. Cooperation, subtlety, and discretion are therefore vital skills alongside the more visible labor of the trade. Economic negotiation intersects with legal and social pressures in subtle ways. Clients are aware, to varying degrees, of the risks women face, and some leverage that knowledge to reduce payment or impose conditions. Conversely, women leverage the threat of legal complications or social embarrassment to protect their income. Knowing when to assert authority, when to comply, and when to negotiate quietly is a skill developed over time. Each transaction becomes a complex negotiation, balancing economic benefit against potential social or legal fallout. Documentation and record keeping, though informal, are also employed. Women may note debts owed, clients' behaviors, or interactions with officials, creating a mental or occasionally written ledger that informs future decisions. Such records are strategic tools, enabling women to anticipate patterns, assess risk, and adjust tactics. A miscalculation in these mental ledgers, whether misjudging a patron's temperament or failing to account for a madam's expectations, could lead to punishment, financial loss, or exposure to authorities. The management of information is therefore as critical as managing coin or personal safety. The role of reputation cannot be overstated. A woman known as cautious, discreet, and reliable is more likely to maintain clientele, avoid fines, and retain favor with the madam. Conversely, a reputation for recklessness, gossip, or visible defiance of rules invites scrutiny, fines, or social ostracism. Reputation functions as both currency and shield, influencing legal tolerance, client behavior, and social interactions. Women carefully curate appearances, manage gossip, and navigate social networks with precision, understanding that perception often shapes reality in this environment more than the actual legality of actions. Church influence adds another layer of complexity. Clerical authorities often enforce moral codes, sometimes punishing women for perceived immorality, other times offering guidance or intervention. Religious observances, penances, and moral inspections create both practical and symbolic pressures. A woman who can negotiate her position relative to the church by appearing compliant, discreetly participating in rituals, or maintaining a semblance of decorum reduces immediate risk while preserving economic stability. Knowledge of religious calendars, observances, and local clergy personalities becomes a survival tool as relevant as herbal remedies or client negotiation. Even with these strategies, uncertainty dominates. Laws are inconsistently enforced, moral standards shift, and chance encounters with hostile officials or townsfolk can disrupt careful plans. Women must remain flexible, improvising when unexpected inspections occur, clients overstep boundaries, or colleagues misstep. This adaptability is a learned skill, honed over years of observation, trial, and error. Those who survive do so not because they are invulnerable, but because they anticipate, adapt, and act with precision under pressure. Mental resilience remains critical. Constant vigilance against legal action, social censure, and public stigma generates stress, fatigue, and anxiety. Women develop coping mechanisms, discreet conversations with trusted peers, humor, routines, and careful emotional management. These strategies are as essential as any practical measure. Without mental endurance, the physical and economic risks become overwhelming. Survival is therefore holistic, integrating mind, body, and social awareness into a continuous negotiation with the environment. By nightfall, the interplay of legal threats, social marginalization, and economic necessity shapes the evening's labor. Every choice where to meet clients, how to conduct transactions, what precautions to take is influenced by a keen understanding of risk, opportunity, and social dynamics. Women navigate a complex system in which legal, social, and economic factors converge, often invisibly, creating a constant tension that defines their daily experience. And yet, amid this precarious environment, one question lingers. In a world where laws are unpredictable, social judgment is harsh, and survival depends on both skill and alliances, how much can a woman truly control her fate? Is endurance primarily the product of strategy, social intelligence, and experience? Or does chance and circumstance play the decisive role? The answer is never clear, leaving an open-ended tension that persists as each day concludes and the next begins. Night has fully settled over the town, yet the brothel remains a space of quiet vigilance. Candles cast flickering shadows along the walls, illuminating worn furniture, scattered herbs, and the muted expressions of women who have endured another day of labor, observation, and negotiation. The challenges of the day, client management, hygiene, disease, and economic calculation, now converge with the less visible but equally potent forces of legal persecution and social marginalization. Survival is measured not simply in coins earned, but in the preservation of autonomy, reputation, and safety amid unpredictable authority. Evening clients present a unique calculus. Wealthier patrons can offer substantial coin, but may also carry social influence, connections to local officials, or the potential for scandal. A woman must weigh the benefits of service against the potential consequences should an encounter attract unwanted attention. Similarly, encounters with lower-tier clients may pose less immediate financial gain, but involve fewer social or legal complications. These choices are never neutral. Each interaction is a negotiation of risk, opportunity, and social perception, executed with the combined knowledge of experience, observation, and intuition. The threat of raids, fines, or imprisonment remains persistent. Even the most careful compliance cannot fully shield women from the capricious enforcement of law. Patrols might arrive unexpectedly, and accusations, whether true or fabricated, can result in public humiliation, incarceration, or confiscation of property. The brothel itself serves as both workplace and refuge. Within its walls, women pool knowledge, share warnings, and coordinate strategies to avoid detection. Senior women and madams act as guides, mediators, and protectors, yet each individual must maintain awareness, discretion, and vigilance. Survival requires constant adaptation to the changing legal landscape. Economic strategy intertwines with social negotiation. A woman's reputation within the brothel, her relationships with clients, and her understanding of the town's moral and legal climate all influence her ability to maintain steady income. Even a single misjudgment being perceived as reckless, rude, or openly defiant can cascade into reduced clients, fines, or social isolation. Conversely, discretion, tact, and strategic alliances can create a protective buffer, allowing women to continue earning despite the structural disadvantages imposed by law and society. Reputation functions as both currency and shield, invisible yet crucial. The role of social alliances is amplified in this precarious environment. Women monitor each other for safety, share knowledge about authorities and enforcement patterns, and assist in mediating disputes. Trust becomes a valuable resource. Alliances must be carefully cultivated, maintained, and, at times, strategically leveraged to survive. The brothel is a microcosm of the broader social landscape, where cooperation, subtlety, and strategic awareness can provide the difference between endurance and vulnerability. Church influence continues to complicate life. Religious authorities preach moral codes, encourage confession, and sometimes enforce penalties for transgression, adding symbolic and practical weight to social marginalization. Yet church oversight is inconsistent, and savvy women learn to navigate it carefully. Participating in rituals, showing outward compliance, or quietly cultivating relationships with sympathetic clerics can reduce scrutiny while maintaining autonomy. Knowledge of religious calendars, local clergy personalities, and moral expectations becomes a subtle tool for survival, alongside practical measures like alliances, reputation, management, and client negotiation. The unpredictability of legal and social forces reinforces the importance of mental resilience. Anxiety, stress, and fatigue are constant companions, yet composure is vital. Maintaining calm reassures clients, protects against scrutiny, and allows clear judgment in moments of potential crisis. Emotional endurance is inseparable from physical and economic survival. A lapse in composure can exacerbate risk, provoke confrontation, or lead to errors in judgment with far-reaching consequences. Mental fortitude is therefore a central skill, silently cultivated over years of experience. By late night, patterns of behavior, law, and social perception have shaped the day's outcome. Women consolidate earnings, assess debts, review alliances, and evaluate potential risks for the following day. Reflection becomes part of survival. Understanding what went well, where risk was misjudged, and which strategies proved effective. This iterative process, continuous learning through observation, adaptation, and experience, is central to enduring the relentless pressures of marginalization and legal threat. Even with mastery of these strategies, uncertainty remains. Enforcement is capricious. Social attitudes are unpredictable, and chance encounters can disrupt careful plans. Survival is therefore both art and science, a delicate negotiation of skill, foresight, observation, and adaptability in a world that is simultaneously essential and hostile. Every day is a new calculation. Every encounter, an opportunity, or a potential threat. Those who endure do so not through invulnerability, but through resilience, awareness, and the quiet application of learned strategies. In the final reflection of the night, a striking paradox emerges. Women in the brothel are both indispensable and marginalized, skilled in social, legal, and economic navigation, yet often invisible in the historical record. Their labor is essential to the functioning of the town's economy, yet moral judgment and legal enforcement render them vulnerable. Their survival relies on intelligence, adaptability, and subtle social mastery, challenging assumptions about agency, resilience, and the capacity to negotiate hostile environments. As sleep approaches, one lingering question remains. In a society that simultaneously exploits and condemns women for their labor, how much of survival depends on skill, and how much on circumstance and chance? And more broadly, what does this tell us about human ingenuity in navigating legal, social, and moral constraints when structures are designed to marginalize rather than protect? The story concludes, but its lessons endure. Resilience, strategy, and adaptation are often forged in the shadowed spaces of society, where survival requires constant vigilance, subtle negotiation, and the quiet mastery of an unpredictable world. Dawn breaks slowly over the town, filtering pale light through narrow streets and shuttered windows. The day in the brothel begins quietly, with the women rising from thin mattresses or straw-stuffed beds, often shared with a colleague. The physical space itself reflects both the economy and the precariousness of life here. Worn wooden floors, patched walls, and candles that have burned down to stubs, their smoke lingering in the air. Even before a single client arrives, the day demands careful attention to hygiene, preparation, and the management of personal belongings. Every detail, however mundane, has consequences for both income and survival. Water is scarce, yet essential. Women begin with a ritualized washing, often using water heated on a small stove or kettle. Hands, faces, necks, and forearms are cleaned first, followed by the feet, hair, and sometimes a quick sponge bath. Soap, if available, is a precious commodity, rationed carefully. Herbs, oils, and fragrant substances may be added not only for cleanliness, but also to mask odors or deter disease. Even the arrangement of personal items, clothing, hairpins, and linens is part of a practical calculus, intended to maintain discretion and personal safety, while signaling a degree of care to clients who associate neatness with skill and reliability. Clothing selection is a daily negotiation between appearance, practicality, and modesty. Women often layer garments to protect their bodies from drafts or minor injury, while still appearing appealing to clients. Bright colors, delicate fabrics, and subtle adornments signal status and skill, while heavier undergarments provide both warmth and protection. Choices in clothing are also tactical. Certain garments allow rapid adjustment during client encounters, while others hide imperfections, scars, or signs of illness. Each item carries both economic and social significance, reflecting both strategy and circumstance. The day's work is structured around a series of calculated routines. Mornings are often spent cleaning the brothel, airing beds, and arranging rooms to create a sense of order, comfort, and discretion. These tasks are far from trivial. Cleanliness and organization influence client perception, reduce risk of disease, and maintain a semblance of professional respectability. Simple acts, wiping surfaces, rotating mattresses, or arranging candles, have consequences that ripple through the day, affecting both economic outcomes and social standing within the brothel hierarchy. Breakfast, when it exists, is modest. Bread, cheese, and occasionally small portions of meat or fish are consumed quickly, often while discussing the day ahead with colleagues. Meals are both practical and social, offering opportunities to exchange information, which clients are expected, which authorities are patrolling, and which remedies might be needed for lingering symptoms. This sharing of knowledge is a survival strategy in itself, an informal network of intelligence and cooperation that supports both health and economic stability. Once clients begin to arrive, routines become more fluid, but no less disciplined. Women assess each individual, observing body language, clothing, and demeanor to gauge temperament, wealth, and potential risk. Negotiation is constant, subtle, and highly practiced. Establishing prices, understanding preferences, and setting boundaries all occur within moments. Physical skill, emotional control, and social awareness combine in a complex choreography that is both performance and survival. Even minor miscalculations can have immediate consequences. A misread signal may provoke displeasure, reduce payment, or invite confrontation. Throughout the day, attention to hygiene and health continues. Hand washing, cloth changes, and discreet use of herbal treatments occur between client visits. Illness is always a potential threat, whether visible as a fever or subtle in symptoms that indicate venereal disease or other infections. Women must monitor their bodies constantly, balancing income with the need to avoid exposure to others and prevent escalation of symptoms. Preventive routines are integrated seamlessly into work, blending practicality with survival instinct. Breaks are brief and strategic. Rest is essential for physical endurance and mental acuity. Yet extended pauses reduce income. Women may steal moments for a short meal, a nap, or discreet personal care, often using secluded corners or less trafficked rooms. The management of energy is vital. Fatigue can compromise both performance and vigilance, increasing the likelihood of mistakes with clients or colleagues, and ultimately affecting economic survival. These interludes, though short, are carefully timed and essential to sustain the rhythm of labor over long hours. Communication with colleagues is constant yet understated. Warnings about difficult clients, observations about authority patrols, and advice about remedies or routines are shared quietly. This network of knowledge exchange functions as both a protective mechanism and a means of collective survival. Collaboration is essential. Even in a competitive environment, women rely on one another, not only for practical support, but also for social intelligence that cannot be gained alone. Trust is carefully cultivated, and alliances shift subtly in response to changing circumstances. Economic awareness permeates every action. Pricing is flexible, often negotiated according to perceived wealth, status, or risk. Small gestures, being attentive, managing conversation, or maintaining a pleasant demeanor can increase earnings. Conversely, missteps can reduce income or provoke conflict. Attention to coin, debt, and personal resources is constant. Every day is a delicate balance between immediate reward, long-term stability, and the management of risk. Resource management extends beyond money, encompassing food, clothing, remedies, and even information, each of which can influence survival. Even routine moments carry hidden challenges. Noise, odors, minor injuries, or disputes among colleagues must be managed quietly to avoid attracting attention from authorities or clients. Spatial awareness is critical. Positioning oneself in rooms, avoiding crowded corridors, and controlling the flow of movement reduces exposure to both social and physical hazards. The brothel is simultaneously workplace, living space, and strategic environment, requiring constant attention and careful navigation. By late morning, the first wave of clients has passed, leaving a momentary lull. Women use this time to reassess health, adjust clothing, and review debts, schedules, and plans for the remainder of the day. These pauses are fleeting but essential, providing opportunities for reflection, preparation, and subtle coordination. Every day unfolds as a careful blend of routine, observation, and improvisation, a cycle that, though repetitive, is punctuated by the continuous negotiation of risk, income, and personal safety. And yet, amid these carefully orchestrated routines, one question remains unresolved. In a life dominated by repetitive labor, vigilance, and the subtle management of body, space, and social perception, how do women maintain autonomy, mental resilience, and a sense of self amid the constant demands of survival? The answer is not immediately apparent, leaving a quiet tension that persists as the day progresses, shaping every decision, interaction, and movement in the brothel. By mid-afternoon, the rhythm of the brothel has solidified into a series of intertwined routines, each meticulously structured to manage income, health, and social dynamics. The women move with practiced efficiency, shifting between roles as negotiators, performers, caretakers, and observers. Every action is informed by the constant need to balance physical survival, economic gain, and the social complexities that define their precarious position. In this environment, repetition is not mere monotony. It is a tool for control, consistency, and resilience. Preparation is ongoing and detailed. Clothing may be adjusted multiple times throughout the day, not simply for appearance but to respond to practical concerns, concealing signs of illness, maintaining warmth in drafty rooms, or allowing for rapid movement in case of inspections. Hair is washed or oiled, hands and faces are discreetly cleaned, and linens are rearranged or aired to reduce discomfort and preserve hygiene. These routines are interwoven with social signaling. Clients and colleagues alike read these cues, interpreting them as markers of skill, discipline, and trustworthiness. Interaction with clients remains the central focus, yet it is highly structured and carefully monitored. Observing demeanor, assessing risk, and negotiating terms are constant mental exercises. Each transaction is not only a source of income, but also an opportunity to reinforce reputation and maintain control